Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Melinda Powelson, and I'm the CEO of Shred and Record Nations. Last week, I gave a speech at the iSigma conference about 24 years of data that Shred and Record Nations has collected, and we want to share that with our partners and others in the RIM industry. Shred and Record Nations are the largest digital lead generation systems for the RIM industry. In this capacity, we provide our service providers leads and opportunities for new business at a fraction of the cost it would cost to incur them to generate new customers themselves. Our sophisticated platform has allowed us to collect significant consumer data through our marketing efforts. We retain customer contact information, but we also track the number of boxes each customer reports for their shredding or records jobs, where the customer is located geographically by zip code, whether the request comes from a business or an individual, where on the internet each request is originated, and which partner companies are matched to every request. Over the past 24 years, there have been hundreds of thousands of inquiries. Looking at this data in aggregate, we wondered what kind of story this data would tell. What we discovered is that there are 4 key stories. 1, a story of information criminals and their evolution from dumpster divers to more sophisticated methods of stealing information. Number 2, a story of the intended victims of this crime. No one is immune, not businesses, not governments, and not individuals. Number 3, a story of the RIM industry, including many of our partner companies and many of you who fight this crime every day. And number 4, the data privacy laws charged with protecting us all. Many of you have witnessed these stories firsthand. You have championed the privacy protection laws and protected consumers of every kind. Sometimes in the ups and downs of business lives, we lose sight of what kind of heroes those of us in the RIM industry really are. The first set of data from Shred and Record Nations that I wanted to share comes from 1999. This is a long time ago when Bill Clinton was president. American Beauty was awarded the Oscar for Best Film, and the Denver Broncos, our home team here in Denver, won the Super Bowl. 1999 was also the first year that Google released its index, which at that time was 26 million pages. It seemed huge. Importantly, this was a time when American companies were also learning that they were targets of corporate espionage, both by business competitors and by foreign governments. These information criminals were stealing information at that time that was mostly on printed paper. They discovered these documents on office desks, in filing cabinets, and in dumpsters behind office buildings. And sometimes they bribed employees to share information from the business world. In 1997, one famous case was Volkswagen versus General Motors. GM alleged that Volkswagen hired a top executive who stole sensitive documents about cost-saving strategies. A second landmark case was in 1999 that involved Bristol Myers, who was targeted by the Taiwan government to steal the formula for Taxol, a major cancer drug. At the same time, there was tremendous effort from people in the RIM industry, including Bob Johnson, who invested in how to keep our trade secrets safe from harm. These laws included the Healthcare Portability Act, which passed in 1996, which has transformed our individual right to privacy, and the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act of 1999, which requires disclosure by financial institutions of how they share and protect private data. The Shred Nations data from 1999 is consistent with the social reactions to this type of crime. Our earliest data shows that 95% of all inquiries came from customers who identified as businesses. Residential customers were rare, and most often they were doctors and dentists who had boxes in their garage stored from a business that they had closed down. Geographically, the opportunities came from major metropolitan areas. The average business requested a purge of about 30 boxes, and 15% of inquiries were from businesses who were looking for recurring shredding services. In 1999, we did not process any record storage or scanning requests. 1999 was our first year in business. We had one person manning our phones from 9 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon every day, and a big day was sending out 8 to 10 opportunities for new business. Our network partners included 100 shredding companies across the United States. Many of our original partners have been acquired over the years, but a few still do business with us today. To give you a sense about how much Shred Nations and our industry has grown, today we have 12 full-time phone reps who answer 2,000 inquiries a day over the phone, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and we sell to a network of 650 RIM partners in the United States and Canada. Over the next period of time, from 1999 to 2000, we began to notice a new type of customer interested in shredding, one that would significantly change the face of our industry. We believe this type of customer was triggered by a new breed of information criminal. These thieves targeted the financial data and personal identity of individuals at the place they felt safest, their homes. Newspaper archives from the 2000s are filled with stories of these criminals who raided mailboxes and searched through people's trash looking for social security numbers, driver's license information, canceled checks, bank statements, credit card application, and anything that they could use to steal financial data from individuals. These criminals use this information to get new home loans, new credit cards, or damage people's reputations. Shockingly, as you all know, dumpster diving was legal today and legal then and remains legal today. Governments responded to this new type of crime by creating laws, including the California Privacy Act of 2003, which required businesses and state agencies to disclose if a Californian's personal information was exposed in a data breach. Many states followed California's lead. And in 2004, the U.S. government passed a national law, which is considered the most pivotal consumer privacy law of our time, the Fair and Accurate Credit Transaction Act. This helped individuals understand how important it was to destroy and protect their own information. The 2006 Shred Nation data shows the beginning of this shift and represents what we consider the first major inflection point of our industry. In 2006, George Bush was president. The Dow Jones closed over 12,000 for the first time, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, not our hometown, won the Super Bowl. Google had grown over this period of time from 26 million records to 154 million index pages. The 2006 Shred Nations data shows how complex the industry had become. 78% of our inquiries were from customers who identified as business, but now 22% of the inquiries were people who identified as residential customers looking to shred documents at their homes. Our inquiries were becoming geographically diverse as well and came from major metropolitan areas, but also smaller cities and suburbs. The average business customer grew from 30 boxes to 40 boxes, and still about 15% of the inquiries from businesses were people who were looking for recurring shredding services. In 2006, we started generating opportunities in both record storage and record scanning. And at that time, we were generating 3 to 5 opportunities every day. In record storage, the requests were quite large. 64% of them were for greater than 500 boxes. And scanning mirrored this, with 65% of the requests being for greater than 500 boxes as well. In total, in 2006, we were processing about 400 inquiries a day and sold to a network of 250 partners in the United States. Our phone team had grown from one person to 3 full-time people who now answered the calls about 10 hours a day. But we ran into an unexpected problem. Of the calls that were coming in, a significant portion were being driven by these residential customers who were not of interest to the partners that were buying our leads. Our partners asked us to only send them jobs with a 10-box minimum pickup. This was because their trucks had a difficult time going into neighborhoods, and it wasn't economically viable for them to go and do such small jobs. But since these calls kept pouring into our phone center, we did what we always do. We listened to the customers and tried to match them with a service that met their need. 2010 marked what we consider the beginning of the drop-off shredding industry. We began partnering with local package ship stores who had a secure shredding bin in their stores, and they started to charge for a small volume of shredding, from 1 box to even a few handful of pages. Drop-off shredding became the best and most practical solution for the residential customer who wanted to dispose of their sensitive information. Our data from 2010 to 2018 shows how the complexity of these requests started to shape the RIM industry. In 2018, Donald Trump was president, Gary Oldman won the award for Best Actor, and the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl. By 2018, Google's index had surged to 100 billion pages strong. The Shred Nations archive shows that we got hundreds of calls a day from consumers with 1 to 3 boxes, and we referred those calls to shredding drop-off centers across the United States and Canada. 55% of the requests still came from businesses, and 45% of our requests that we matched to providers were from residential customers who had 10 to 19 boxes. The average size of a business purge grew again, this time from 40 to 50 boxes. In 2018, our Record Nations data showed significant changes in the record storage industry. At this point, 50% of our requests were from 20 to 99 boxes, and 28% of the requests were from 100 to 499 boxes. Record scanning requests grew largely due to a piece of legislation sponsored by President Obama, which encouraged doctors and hospitals to transition to medical records. And you can see on this slide how it shifted significantly the size of referral. From 29% of the inquiries were very small, from 10,000 to 49,000 images, and so on. Record Nations and Shred Nations processed about 1,000 inquiries a day in 2018, and our partner network was about 600 companies strong. If we looked at what was happening with information crime at this time, there are still some stories about dumpster diving and traditional corporate espionage, but these stories are dwarfed by a new type of information crime. This is when we started to see stories about attacks exposing tens and even hundreds of millions of personal records being stolen online. And the stories were spectacular. There were 533 million users exposed by Facebook, 500 million users exposed by Marriott, 340 million users exposed by Exactus, 330 million exposed by Twitter, and 150 million exposed by Under Armour. There are so many examples of information crime, and they are still happening every day. But because this crime became public, the consumer started requesting a different type of destruction, and we added hard drive destruction to our categories for the first time. And at this point, in 2018, they were only 3% of all sales. Today, electronic destruction is by far the fastest growing request that we get, and we see no sign of it slowing down. There we are. That takes us to the next major inflection point in the industry. and in our society, which is the COVID-19 pandemic. The 2020 COVID pandemic shifted office workers from their business buildings to their homes. The effect of this shift is far-reaching and has accelerated the evolution of our industry faster than we ever thought possible. It has affected how we operate, how we view the world, and even our technology has had to adapt. For those of us in the RIM industry, the shift, like all other shifts, is driven by the evolving information criminal. However, we believe this shift in the industry is also driven by a consuming public that is now fully educated about how important it is to destroy their sensitive data in their personal lives and their business lives. That awareness is a credit to everyone in our industry. Our data from 2020 to 2023 illustrates the impact the remote office has had on our industry and provided some strong guidance about where we need to move if we want to maintain strong and thriving businesses. And the opportunity before us is full of potential. The data shows requests continue to get more complex. 15% of customers are seeking more than one type of information to be shredded, and this includes hard drives, tablets, cell phones, and laptops. We thought that the pandemic would mean more residential pickups, but the data does not bear that out. Since 2020, Shred Nations has maintained a 57% request from businesses and 43% of requests from residential customers. Geographically, the opportunities come from everywhere. Big cities, small cities, and some of the most rural parts of our country. Shredding is mainstream. And as a point of reference, Google, which last week left at hundreds of billions of pages, is so large that they have stopped cataloging how big the index actually is. Our 2020 to 23 records data continues to show that record storage requests are growing, but only at the smallest volumes. And record scanning requests are growing as more businesses convert from electronic records from paper records. And the good news is that the biggest scanning jobs are growing the fastest, those with more than 1 million pages. And as you can see, where the biggest growth is in electronics. As people continue to look at the valuable information on hard drives, tablets, any cell phones, and anything that has electronic data on it. To me, and those who helped me analyze this data, 2020 to 2023 feels very much like the industry shift from the 2000s, when the customers started looking for both businesses and residential material to shred. This is a time of significant change. As you know, information criminals are attacking from all sides. Paper is still vulnerable and has to be destroyed. And if we don't continue destroying paper, the information criminal will go right back to the dumpsters. But consumers are very concerned about their electronics being targeted by people phishing through phone calls and email, various data harvesting strategies on the internet, and so on. It's such a vulnerable time in our industry for consumers and businesses. And every day, our phone team talks to these people, young and old, about these concerns. Many of them tell us that they have boxes of electronics in their homes and offices and no idea where to take this information and what to do with it so that it can be destroyed and taken care of environmentally. Some of the feedback we get is that there's frustration with once-a-year electronics recycling events. They don't know if their electronics will be taken care of safely or if they're going to show up in a secondhand store or in a criminal's hands or offshore in a place where they have no idea what happens to that data. So instead, they keep them stored in random closets or in their garage. Our challenge as an industry is to educate the consumers that stockpiling these electronics is potentially expensive and risky. And we need to provide a good solution that destroys this data and also takes care of the environmental need to recycle them responsibly. This is what's important to consumers today. And similar to the early 2000s, there are laws that are helping us get this information across. The European Union's GDPR, which says that this data should be taken care of carefully, is leading the way. And just like earlier, California in the United States says that this data is worthy of protection. And someday soon, we imagine that the United States will have a national law. And in our opinion, this is the time for the RIM industry to respond to this crime and provide a great solution. In 2022, there were 286 million new computers sold in North America, 1.2 billion smartphones sold, and 163 million tablets were sold on the market. It's impossible to know just how many millions of old electronics are sitting in boxes waiting for a good solution. At $12 to $25 per unit for certified destruction, the market could be anywhere between $2.6 and $4.4 billion annually. And as a bonus, there's the money associated with recycling all these old electronics. But like the evolution of the paper shredding industry, we know these changes are going to take time. We won't see the $2 to $4 billion in annual sales until people understand they need to consistently destroy the data from all their old computers, cell phones, and laptops as soon as they purchase a new device to replace it. That's a long way from where we are today. It is our job to shift this thinking, and everybody in the industry can play a role. To close this out, I want to summarize what we learned from studying our data from 1999 to 2023. The Shred Nations and Record Nation data is a reflection of the RIM industry. The data shows that we began as a business designed to thwart data thieves who were stealing sensitive information from businesses, and it has evolved to an industry that is decidedly more complex today. The trends show significant penetration of the business market. When people call us, they are sophisticated and they know they need to store, scan, and destroy all their paper documents. 57% of our opportunities come from businesses. There is also substantial awareness in the residential and homeowner market. When these customers call, they are also fully aware that they need to protect their private information. These opportunities make up 43% of the leads we send out every day. In terms of quantity, the average business purge has grown from 30 to 50 boxes in the last 25 years. The average residential purge has gotten smaller. It has dropped from an average of 10 boxes to 4 boxes per inquiry. Recurring shredding service after the COVID pandemic has taken the biggest hit. These opportunities have dropped from 15% to 9%, representing the loss of workers in an office setting. In record storage, we have seen a decrease in the average size of the storage request over the past 20 years, from 250 boxes to an average of 50 boxes. In record scanning, the demand has remained steady, with volume increasing at both the high end and low end of the market. And by far, the strongest growth in our recent data is from electronics, which has grown from 3% to 15% of all opportunities in the past 3 years. We believe the sky is the limit, but it really depends on the RIM industry's ability to educate people about the risk of failing to properly destroy their sensitive electronic information, and coupled with the environmental benefits of recycling these pieces of hardware. There is one last piece of information that feels important to share that can't be quantified by the Shred and Record Nations data, but is based on our 24 years of experience watching our network partners grow and thrive. That is the characteristic of the companies who are going to dominate the industry from here forward. We know these companies need to be flexible and respond to consumer needs. We know that companies who are time sensitive and respond quickly in the age of Amazon because customers expect a quick and professional response. companies whose logistical strength lets them service business and residential consumers promptly. And the biggest winners are going to be companies who are willing to evolve. We know that iSigma and its members are the heroes of this story. You educate consumers about how to prevent data loss and prevent identity theft. You are the stewards of the environment, and you stop information crime every day. We at Shred Nations and Record Nations are grateful for your service and honored to partner with you in this very important endeavor. Thank you so much for your time.